In 1994, an ad went out in a UK newspaper called The Stage, asking young girls aged 18 to 23 to audition for a new pop girl group. Hundreds of girls auditioned, and in an American Idol-esque fashion, were all asked to perform the same song, Stay by Eternal, and then successful contestants were allowed to do a solo audition with a song of their choice. After about 2 more rounds of auditions, it was narrowed down to 5 girls: Melanie Brown, Victoria Beckham, Jerry Halliwell, Emma Bunton, and Melanie Chisholm. The group was officially formed and they were to be known as the pop girl group Touch. The name wouldn't stick though, and after 2 years and multiple changes in management and representation, the group landed on the name Spice Girls. In 1996, the group put out what would be their most popular song ever, Wannabe. The song was massively successful, was #1 for multiple weeks in many different countries, and launched the group into international superstardom, cementing their place as one of the best-selling girl groups of all time. A couple months after the release of their smash hit, a journalist from the magazine Top of the Pop, a British gossip magazine, did an interview with the group where he gave each of the girls different nicknames. It's rumored that the journalist, Peter Lorraine, did this because he could not be bothered to remember their actual names. In the story he ran for the magazine, he dubbed Victoria Beckham Posh Spice, Melanie Chisholm Sporty Spice, Emma Bunton Baby Spice, Jerry Halliwell Ginger Spice, and Melanie Brown Scary Spice. The nicknames stuck, and the group even embraced and adopted them in future appearances. In fact, these nicknames are still commonly how people refer to each member of the group. When asked about why he chose those names, Peter had this to say: "Posh was the first one to be thought up because Victoria looks pretty sophisticated. The rest were pretty easy really because the girls' character were already really strong. The names jump out at us. We laughed the most when we came up with Scary. Jennifer Cawthorne, who was also from Leeds, came up with that one because Mel B was so loud and had tried to take over our whole photo shoots." The angry black woman stereotype dominates several areas of pop culture. It's an archetype that most of us are used to seeing even if we can't give it a name. In fact, it is so pervasive that many black women at some point in their lives have been deemed difficult or angry. It is characterized by depicting black women as being loud, aggressive, irritable, and angry. Now, this stereotype is something that immediately stood out to me when working on the Schneider-verse video last year. But at the time, I didn't want to include it in that video because I felt that it would open a much larger conversation around the problematic nature of Dan Schneider shows, and that wasn't what that video was supposed to be about. But I think I'm finally ready to have the conversation. So a couple months ago, I embarked on a huge journey of re-watching the Dan Schneider sitcoms for a larger video about the inconsistencies in the universe. During that journey, I noticed a lot of different stuff that made me uncomfortable, to say the least. You know, 1 time is weird, 2 times is a coincidence, 3 times there's a pattern. So I wanted to highlight what I felt were problematic depictions of non-white characters and non-American characters in the Schneider universe, particularly the depiction of black women. Now, the reason I'm calling it the Dan Schneider universe is because besides these shows being created and produced by the same person, they also have very similar tones, jokes, and writers, and are largely believed to take place in a shared universe. So you end up finding one problematic element duplicated in different shows in the universe. And the depiction of black women particularly stood out to me, honestly, even as a kid. I grew up in the 2000s and 2010s, so my Nickelodeon experience was mostly Drake and Josh, iCarly, and Victorious. And when watching those shows, I knew that if a black woman character was on those shows, specifically a dark-skinned black woman, she's probably going to be depicted in a very stereotypical way. Now, there's been renewed re-examining of the Nickelodeon shows produced by Dan Schneider, and I just want to make it clear that this video is not going to be an examination on the character of Dan Schneider, nor is it going to be an evaluation on the experiences of actors who worked on his shows. There's a lot of other sources out there for that. This video is really just one topic that I honestly hesitated a lot to talk about in my original video, but it's something ultimately I felt could offer new insight in how we engage with these bodies of work. And I already know that some of these might be controversial, but let's talk about it. Let's finally have the race conversation. Helen was a reoccurring character on the TV show Drake and Josh. She ran the movie theater that Josh worked at and was played by Yvette Nicole Brown. Funnily enough, there was one episode where she was played by a different actress, Frances Callier, who ironically played the character of Roxy on Hannah Montana. And it's only ironic because Roxy and Helen do kind of have similarities. But Frances only took over for one episode because Yvette was busy filming a different TV show. But for every other appearance of this character, she is portrayed by Yvette Nicole Brown. Helen's characterization in Drake and Josh was kind of the archetypal angry black woman trope that we see in pretty much all the other black women characters. She was a no-nonsense, take charge kind of lady, and honestly, I really liked Helen as a character. I thought she was very funny, and I never really thought twice about the way she was depicted throughout the series. I particularly liked her interactions with Josh. I always thought it was funny how she favored Drake and couldn't stand Josh, even forgetting who he was most of the time.
You know, Helen, I also have a clipboard.
And you are?
Josh, I work here.
Good. Get me a hot dog.
Helen would be seen in other shows in the Dan Schneider universe as well. She appeared in Victorious and Game Shakers. And one of the more notable depictions of Helen was that people around her were scared of her. Even though in her characterization she was for the most part sweet, albeit a bit strict. Other characters responded to her with fear.
Who else is frightened by her?
And that's kind of a running theme we see with the different black women characters in the Schneider-verse. People are scared of them. They're seen as loud and aggressive, and despite the fact that Helen is depicted in this way, my feelings towards her are decidedly mixed. Because on one hand, I really do enjoy this character, and I don't necessarily think the depiction of this character alone is a harmful representation of black women. Helen is confident, she finds love, she's fierce, she's a manager, she becomes a principal, and then the host of her own talk show, and there's just an air of self-assurance when it comes to her, and I find that to be really compelling. Not to mention, she's genuinely really funny and lights up almost every single scene she's in.
And then I'm gonna sing a song from my favorite musical.
Baby, you got 90 seconds.
But it's a 5-minute audition.
Action!
Those are not exactly what I would categorize as harmful depictions of black women, but because the other characters around her respond to her in this way, as this very difficult and scary person, even if Helen has all of those great attributes, it's immediately overlooked and she's pushed into this box where she's now only seen as just another angry black woman, even if that's not what she really is. The characters respond to her as if she's just a loud, aggressive, and scary person.
Did you all want something?
And it's really sad that this is distinctly how so many characters respond to her and act towards her, because there were so many bright spots of her characterization, especially in Drake and Josh, where she's depicted as being really sweet and thoughtful. But that's why stereotypes are so powerful. Once we make the association in our minds about where this character belongs and who they are, they kind of always stay there, even if there's new information to challenge this idea. It doesn't matter what Helen has done or how she actually acts, or whether she has moments of vulnerability, because if everyone around her is intimidated by her and scared of her, then all she really is another angry black woman. So, Jocelyn was a bully that only appeared in one episode of iCarly, the episode I Make Sam Girlier. In this episode, Sam has a crush on a guy, and when he's invited to Sam's birthday party, everyone talks about how strong she is and how she's just like one of the guys. This rubs Sam the wrong way because she thinks this guy won't like her if she isn't girly enough. Anyways, in the episode, there's a new student, a bully called Jocelyn, and just look at this.
Next time I sneeze, you better say God bless you.
I will! I'm sorry!
So again, we see Jocelyn fall into this angry black woman stereotype, but even more so, because Jocelyn is a lot bigger and muscular than the other kids, which is no coincidence seeing as the actress that played her was a grown woman when this aired, and she also used to be a professional basketball player. So there is this kind of dehumanization thing going on with this character where she's really just depicted as being a monster.
Hey, break it up! Put that boy down right now!
You irritate me!
I don't want any trouble.
I do.
Sam,
Yeah?
rip her head off.
Rip my head off? I'd love to see her try it.
Nothing like a typical bully, she's super strong, towers over all the kids including the teachers, and is very, very aggressive. Now like I said, the depiction of a character like this in a vacuum wouldn't ring any alarm bells for me, and I doubt that the casting directors were actively seeking out a black actress to play this role. But when it's compounded with all the other examples of depictions of black women being overly aggressive, it does start to feel like a pattern of behavior. I also think it's important to note that this character is a lighter-skinned black woman, exhibiting stereotypes mostly associated with darker-skinned black women, and I really think the only reason this is that this character fell into that just because of how they look. Because she's super tall and athletic, she's still treated as an aggressive black woman. Now, Andre's grandmother has always been a very confusing character. She's always been depicted as being mentally unwell, but I think the most interesting thing is that it seems like Andre is solely responsible for her well-being. He's completely out of his depth, and his grandmother is clearly struggling with something, but it's always played for laughs. Mixed in with the depictions of insanity and spontaneity of the character, she's also very aggressive, very loud, and always confused.
Hi, Mrs. Harris.
How you doing?
I don't understand this!
Grandma!
Quit screaming!
Are you trying to scream louder than me?
I am screaming louder than you!
Oh, no, you don't!
Oh, yeah, I do!
No!
Oh, you want to
I never really found Andre's grandmother to be funny. Honestly, sometimes I was annoyed when they had her in episodes because she didn't really add much, and the joke was always just to laugh at the fact that she's mentally unwell. Andre's grandmother made very sparse appearances in the show, and her only role functionally in the sitcom was to be laughed at. She would pop in, very confused and disoriented, and that was the joke. We were to laugh that this woman didn't know who she was or where she was. So, Andre started dating a new girl in the episode aptly titled Andre's Horrible Girlfriend. In this episode, Andre starts dating a new girl called Hope. He kept this a secret from his friends. That is until she visited him one day at school and met his friends. Immediately, we noticed that Hope was very controlling of Andre, even going as far as dressing him, and she was very rude and mean to his friends.
What are you doing?
Oh, I don't know. I'm actually not quite feeling this scarf with this shirt. You know?
When I gave you that scarf, you said you loved it. Were you lying?
No, baby. Baby, I love it. Just let me put it back around my neck. Yeah, that's the thing.
Raise your hand if you hate her.
I do.
Ding.
The group are very confused about why Andre would even date someone so horrible until he reveals that Hope is the daughter of a famous music producer and that Andre is just using her so that he can meet her father and hopefully get signed to make music. So in the episode, pretty much everyone hates Hope, even her own father. She's controlling, short-tempered.
Hope, you know that song I'm gonna sing for your birthday?
Just sit down and order me a sunamono salad with no crab. I have to talk to Mrs. Lee about my birthday party.
You're having your birthday party here? That is so cool. How did you... And she walked away.
Hey!
Oh.
You and I need to talk.
Okay, what do you want to talk about? You yanked my arm.
Happy birthday, Hope. And thank you for that reaction.
Oh, man.
Now just sing it!
At the end of the episode, there's an earthquake, Hope gets hit in the head, and everyone's happy about it.
Daddy, my head hurts.
Yes, baby.
Feel better, Hope?
Happy birthday!
Shut up!
I assume you'll want to meet her at the hospital?
Well, I could. Or what do you say we hear Andre and Tori sing that song again, huh?
Now, the interesting thing about this is that Andre is very rarely given love interests. In fact, I think he only ever dates 2 girls in the show, and the other girl he dated was characterized very differently. She was obsessed with kissing him, which kind of reminded me of the Jezebel stereotype, where black women are depicted as hypersexual. She never had any characterization at all. Pretty much her whole characterization was that she was super horned up and couldn't control herself, and all she wanted to do was make out with Andre.
I'm getting sick of that girl.
And why are you always kissing her?
She won't stop. I keep trying to talk, listen to music, get to know each other better. But to her, I'm just a pair of sweet, buttery lips.
Interestingly enough, her depiction is a deviation from the angry black woman stereotype. You know, they took a break from that to adopt a new stereotype. But the angry black woman stereotype is normally associated with dark-skinned black women. So I really do think the only reason she didn't play into that was because she was light-skinned. And the exception was made with Jocelyn because while she's light-skinned, she's also really tall and athletic. So that kind of canceled out each other. So now we have Andre's cousin. You know, I just realized that all of these characters have some ties to the only black main character in the cast. I wonder what that's about. So in this episode, the gang are tasked with directing a short film with famed director Dale Squires. However, it becomes abundantly clear that Dale has no interest in working on the project, so the gang had to finish the short film themselves. However, despite not having contributed anything to the project, Dale took sole credit over the success of the film. The gang decides they need to take revenge, so they contact Andre's cousin and pay her to disrupt an interview Dale has on a talk show. During the interview, Dale, overcome with guilt, gives credit to the cast, but it was too late to stop Andre's cousin, and this happens.
About to open up a cloud and rain all over you!
Now, the interesting thing to me about really all of these depictions, but especially this one, is that this character didn't need to be a black woman, and it would also functionally work the same way if this character wasn't related to Andre. They could have just found some random person to do this and the events would have unfolded the same. That is, unless the joke is seeing a black woman behave this way. Because when you think about it, they could have gotten Psychoids to disrupt this, or literally anyone. Why specifically Andre's cousin, and why did she have to be Andre's cousin? And it's because the joke is Andre's cousin is perfect for this because she would be loud, aggressive, and angry. Okay, so I want to talk about Andre for a little bit, because while this video isn't about the explicit racism in the Schneider-verse, that would be a longer video, I do think it's interesting that so many of the black women we talk about are connected to Andre in one way or another. And when it comes to Andre, he had very little to do in Victorious as the seasons went on. I actually felt that way about a lot of very sparse black characters in the Schneider-verse. The thing about Andre is that throughout the show, he gets very few love interests. The show really plays into shipping culture. At some point, the cast members are all shipped with each other, but not really Andre. The few times he does get a love interest is with a character that we only see for one episode very briefly, and they never show up again. The show never really commits to the idea of putting Andre with another girl in the main cast, which is crazy, because they endlessly paired all of these characters together, so I don't know why they drew the line on Andre. There was one episode where Andre had a crush on Jade, but it was one-sided, and as quickly as they introduced that idea, they dropped it. So Andre is never paired with another girl from the cast, especially when the obvious answer would have been to just let him date Tori. Now, I'm not saying I'm eager to see an interracial relationship, or that I prefer the idea of that over Andre being with a black girl, but there is this trend I've noticed in the shows at this time where in cases where they do not have a black woman character on the main cast, they will just introduce a guest appearing one, even if at some point the entire cast is dating each other. It's like it never at all crossed their minds that Andre could be with Tori or actually date Jade or even Kat. If Andre is to have any love interest, they only feel comfortable pairing him with another black character, and that character only ever appears once. So, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Okay, so having gone through all of that, I have pretty complicated feelings when it comes to this topic, and it's why I waited so long until I could really work through them to make this video. Because I want to make it very clear that in a vacuum, I don't necessarily find characters like Helen, Jocelyn, or even Andre's mean girlfriend problematic. I don't think it's inherently racist that black women may be depicted as being flawed or loud, angry, and aggressive. Black female characters should have a variety of depictions throughout media because people are diverse. But oftentimes, shows fall back into only one type of depictions, and those depictions often lack nuance. These characters are only funny because they're all loud and scary. But why does that all matter? This is all fiction, no one's really getting hurt here. But we know that depictions of groups of people in media often inform how people engage with them in real life. Peter Lorraine only had a very brief encounter with the Spice Girls when he gave each of them a nickname. He didn't really know them, or who they were, or what they were like. He made a lot of assumptions about their character in their very brief introduction, and the nickname that jumped out at him when he met the only black girl in the group was Scary. And he thought it was especially funny because she was loud. I have no issues with black female characters being bad, nor do I believe that black female characters cannot be flawed. But especially when we talk about the Dan Schneider universe, if that's the most popular depiction of black women across multiple shows, well then that says a lot about what you think about that demographic on a whole. And I do want to point out that there are black female characters in the universe that deviate from this trend, particularly Charlotte from Henry Danger. Charlotte is depicted as being very intuitive and intelligent, being one of the few characters in the show to figure out that Henry was actually a superhero, but Charlotte is an anomaly. She's the exception to the rule. When overwhelmingly most of your black female characters are depicted in one way, well then that says a lot. I'll also say that I reject the idea that non-white writers and producers should not create non-white characters. I think it's fine for someone like Dan to create black characters. But when you are creating characters from a demographic of people you don't belong to, there is a certain amount of care and responsibility that has to go into it. And more often than not, it seems like the easiest thing to do is to just fall back on established stereotypes. Now, one interesting thing that I have been wanting to talk about forever is those situations where black stereotypes are applied to non-black characters. Sam from iCarly and Rex from Victorious are black. Now I know that sounds like a really insane thing to say, but just stay with me, you'll see where I'm coming from eventually. Now, it's not a new revelation that Nickelodeon shows, especially the Dan Schneider shows, have a lot of problematic content in them. From the over-sexualization of teenagers to the weird feet fetishes, something that really stood out to me in particular was the treatment of black and brown people. They are oftentimes the butt of the joke and play into very harmful stereotypes about the respective communities. But what's even more interesting to me is the way that the show kind of circumvents that by playing into these stereotypes with non-black characters. So what do I mean by that? Sam is a white person. She's played by a white actress and the character has always been considered white in the show. Well, Jewish. Sam is known for being very aggressive, loud, and violent. A lot of Sam's characterization seems to stem from her troubled background, being raised by an abusive single mother. She was abandoned by her father when she was younger. She loves hip-hop music and fried chicken.
My name is Samantha Puckett. I'm from Seattle and I love fried chicken! It's true. She does. She loves chicken.
And she's been having behavioral issues since she was a kid. Sam is known for having had very frequent run-ins with law enforcement. She has a parole officer. And throughout the show, we learn that pretty much her entire family is troubled and a lot of them are incarcerated. Now look, I'm not saying that black people have a monopoly on struggle and that any character that is depicted as being from a broken family or loves rap music is trying to be black. Nor am I saying that those are the only ways to depict blackness. However, when you look into it, our first introduction to Sam was her beating up another kid. And I don't think this was intentional on the writers by any means, but my speculation as to what happened with Sam's character is that because they wanted Sam to be an edgier kid than Carly and Freddie, they gave her characteristics they believed were edgy. And to do that, it was kind of just easier to fall back on the angry black woman stereotype. And those gradually got introduced as the show went on. In fact, we only ever found out about Sam's absent father in season 4 of iCarly. And it was just as a throwaway joke.
Yes, and my dad once told my mom he was coming back. So moving on.
No, I don't think these writers were trying to make Sam black, but I do think in their minds what an edgy character looks like is black. And so they kind of just piled on every single black stereotype they could think of to make Sam this super dangerous and violent, aggressive character. I really don't think it's just a coincidence that Sam loves fried chicken and rapping. And like I said, this was all very gradual. Sam's character changes so much from that first episode. We found out episodes and seasons later just how troubled she is, how often she gets involved with law enforcement, and the fact that there are states where Sam is legally not allowed to be in.
What are the states where Sam can't go? Arizona, Utah, and Ohio.
Oh, my.
There's 3 more states where Sam can't be. Texas, New Hampshire, and Tennessee.
I'm also not welcome in Europe.
So So I really do believe these are passive attempts to make Sam seem more dangerous by closely associating her with black stereotypes. Now you might think I'm reaching with this one, and that's fine, but for this next one, it is very explicitly the case. Rex's introduction in the pilot episode of Victorious was explicitly as a black character. The Rex we get in the series pilot is very different in terms of appearance from the Rex we see in the rest of the show. Rex only looks like this in the first episode, and here he has a much deeper skin tone, larger, more exaggerated features, and his hair is textured. So whereas I felt that Sam was subtextually black, Rex being black is not subtext. Even if we looked past his appearance in the pilot, where they did make him black, and even look past the fact that he speaks in AAVE, even in the show itself, they said they wanted Rex to be an urban character.
Could you try it again, but like with more attitude and can you do a realistic American urban accent?
American urban. All right, I'll give it a go. Psychowitz, down the hall, swing a left at the water fountain, second door on your right. Was that more in the zone?
Oh yeah, perfect.
Now, I'm sure I don't have to explain this, but whenever anyone in this universe says urban, they mean black.
What up? Chicky, check it out. You got T Vega, that's Tori Vega Docious. Initials TV on your TV.
Not that much fun.
I was being urban.
Yeah, not really.
A mutual friend of Tori, some kid named Rex, whose profile pic for some reason shows an urban puppet.
I am a bit confused why they changed Rex's appearance. I tried looking into the exact reasoning why they made this change, but I couldn't find anything. My speculation is that they just thought it would be funnier if Rex talked and acted like this.
Psychowitz, down the hall, swing a left at the water fountain, second door on your right.
Thank you.
Whatever it takes, cupcake.
But looks like this. That's it. I think they just thought it would be funnier if Rex acted black, but did not look black. And I think that's the same reasoning that applied to Sam. So Sam and Rex play into black stereotype, but what does that mean largely for us? Now, stereotypes are a neutral term. It essentially means flattening down abstract ideas into easier concepts, normally through overgeneralization. Now, sometimes that can be beneficial when you're talking about larger, harder to grasp concepts, but it can also be extremely harmful if that overgeneralization is applied to an entire group of people, because people are complex. And yeah, stereotypes might tap into some larger truths, but no two people are the same, and we don't all go through the same things. So a generalization that all black people love fried chicken not only obscures the reality of the situation, which is that that's not necessarily true, but also that those assumptions cause real harm in the real world. Sam and Rex's characters both play into black stereotypes, whether that was intended by the writers or not. They are essentially allegories for black people, or at least the way writers and creators think black people are supposed to behave, based on those stereotypes. So for those who don't know, an allegory often uses stereotypes and symbols to make references to a certain group of people. For example, in Avatar, the big blue aliens are aliens. They're not humans. They don't come from our planet. But based on how they look, how their culture is depicted to us, and the different circumstances the film put them in, we are already making the connection in our minds that these 10-foot tall aliens are similar to indigenous people. Now, is that necessarily a good thing? Is there a lot of care involved when making the connection to ensure audiences walk away with the right idea about indigenous people? Not necessarily, but James Cameron didn't have to have them looking exactly like indigenous people for us to already make the connection in our minds. Through the way they speak, interact with each other, and navigate situations, we know who these people represent, and probably are making assumptions about how they can and will navigate situations based on stereotypes of indigenous people. And that's essentially what happened with Sam and Rex. Yes, Sam is not actually a black person. No, I wouldn't have loved if a black actress played her and walked up on that stage and screamed, "I loved fried chicken." You know, I liked the character of Sam, and I think Jeanette did a very good job playing her. But the subtext is telling us something different. And yeah, Rex is just a puppet. Do puppets even have race? Doesn't matter, because based on how Rex looks and acts, we can racialize him, meaning assign a race to him based on the stereotypes that he plays into. So that's another avenue of how black stereotypes manifest in the Dan Schneider universe. So that was a lot. And listen, if you reject any of what I said in this video, I completely get it. These are just thoughts that I specifically had after watching these shows over and over again. I have to say that a large part of my conflict with this topic was because I often find a lot of the conversations around the harmful material in the Dan Schneider shows to be reductive. I feel like sometimes it boils down to people reactively going out of their way to find things to have a kind of gotcha moment about, and I felt like making this video would kind of be playing into that. But recently, the Quiet on Set documentary was released and we saw way more information come to light about the horrors a lot of these child actors dealt with working on these shows. And this only further compounded my mixed feelings about this video and topic, because now it felt almost needlessly distractful to the conversation around the real people who experienced harm. And then I started grappling with the idea of how problematic is it to even keep engaging with these works and making videos about them when the people who worked on them experienced so much harm. Is it wrong for us to continue watching shows like Victorious and iCarly? I don't know the answer to that, but I do think that if we choose to still engage with it, we should be mindful of the sacrifices of the kids that went into making these shows. And maybe videos like these offer a more comprehensive perspective of what we're consuming. Maybe it opens our mind further to, while we're enjoying these shows, be able to recognize some potentially harmful content. So that's it, the last round of the Schneider-verse I did not touch in my last Schneider-verse video. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know what your thoughts are about this whole situation and any of the ideas and concepts I talked about. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.